My mom told me flat out I had to hand over $15. Zero, zero, zero for my sister's wedding. When I refused, she didn't argue. She stole my credit card and drained my savings. And the wild part, I couldn't stop laughing when I found out. The next morning, my sister called me in a panic. This story, Reddit, is savage. My mom thought she was being clever, but her little scheme blew up in the most satisfying way possible. Grab some popcorn because this one's a ride. I'm 25, male, and I've always known my mom played favorites. Some kids get spoiled. Others get stuck with the bill. I was always the latter. My younger sister, Audrey, the golden child. Private school paid for. A car at 16. College covered without ever lifting a finger. Meanwhile, I was pulling night shifts at a warehouse just to scrape through community college. But this was a new level of audacity. It was a Thursday evening. Around Zeben. I just walked in from my engineering job. Still in work clothes. Ready to crack open a drink and unwind. That's when Mom walked into my apartment. Yeah. She still had a spare key. A mistake I was about to regret. She didn't even bother to sit down. She just stood in my living room, arms crossed, and dropped the bomb. Nick, Audrey's wedding is in 2 months. She needs $15,000. You're going to give it to her. Not a question. Not a request. A demand. I set my drink down slowly, trying to process. Mom, that's my entire savings. I've been building that for 3 years. Her expression didn't budge. You don't need it right now. Audrey's getting married. This is her day. Family comes first. Nick, or did I raise you to be selfish? There it was, the classic guilt trip. Her favorite weapon. Make me the bad guy for daring to protect my own money. Money I'd earned through 60-hour work, weeks, and years without vacations. I took a deep breath. Mom, I worked for that. Audrey's 24. Her fiancé, Peter, has a job. Together they make double what I do. If they can't afford the wedding they want, they should scale it down. Wrong answer. Her face hardened. So you're going to embarrass your sister, let her get married in some cheap venue because her brother's too greedy to help. Everyone will know you refused. Your aunts, your cousins, all of them. The threat was crystal clear. She'd brand me the selfish son forever. Never mind that I'd already covered Mom's car payments twice last year. Never mind, I'd paid for Audrey's emergency dental work that somehow turned into cosmetic veneers. But sure, I'm the greedy one here. I looked her dead in the eye. I'm not paying for Audrey's wedding. That's final. The temperature in the room dropped. Mom's lips pressed into a thin line. Her eyes dark. You're making a mistake. Nick. A big one. Don't say I didn't warn you. She stormed out, slamming my apartment door so hard the frame rattled. The silence that followed told me everything I knew. This wasn't over. Deep down, my gut screamed at me to change the locks. Freeze my credit. Take precautions. But I didn't. I thought even she wouldn't cross that line. Yeah, I was dead wrong. Friday morning. My phone was buzzing nonstop. 3 missed calls from the bank's fraud department. 2 urgent text alerts. My stomach dropped before I even opened them. When I logged into my banking app, my worst fears were staring back at me. Nearly $15,000. In pending charges. All racked up overnight. The list made my blood boil. Wedding venue deposit $5. Ling. Catering down payment $4. Wubai. Photography package $2. Babe. Florist $1. Wubai. Dress alterations $980. Réception décoration $467. All within 6 hours. All on the credit card I kept locked in my desk drawer. My hand shook so badly I could barely dial the bank. 20 minutes later, the fraud rep confirmed what I already knew. Someone had my full card details, right down to the CVV code. Then they asked the question that sealed it. Does anyone else have access to your apartment? He swallowed hard. My mom does. And yesterday, she demanded this exact amount. The rep went quiet. Sir, I'm very sorry, but you'll need to file a police report. We can dispute the charges, but with family involvement, it can get complicated. Complicated. That was one word for it. My own mother had broken into my place, stolen my card, and used it to bankroll my sister's wedding. Not asked, not borrowed. Stolen. My buddy Kai, 5 years working side by side, called right then for our usual Friday coffee run. The second I picked up, he heard it in my voice. "You sound like someone pissed in your cereal. What happened?" I told him everything. Silence. Then Kai said, "Bro, you have to handle this now. Otherwise, they'll never stop." He was right. This wasn't just about money anymore. It was about my mother believing she could rob me and walk away without consequences. I called her. She answered on the third ring, sounding chipper, like she hadn't just committed felony fraud 12 hours earlier. "Morning. Nick, I hope you've had time to think. You stole my credit card." My voice was ice. "You stole $15. Ding ding ding." Silence. Then that condescending tone I knew too well. "Oh, don't be so dramatic. I didn't steal. I handled things. Audrey needed help. And you were being stubborn. You'll thank me later when you see how beautiful the wedding is." The sheer nerve. She didn't deny it. Didn't apologize. She acted like she'd done me a favor. "I want my card back. And you're going to cancel every single charge." She laughed. Actually laughed. "Nick. Honey. It's done. The deposits are non-refundable. Just accept it and move on. Besides," her voice dropped into that smug tone, "what are you going to do? Call the police on your own mother?" There it was. The power play. She thought she had me trapped, that I'd stay silent out of family loyalty. Terrified of how it would look if I pressed charges. Too bad for her. She miscalculated. She laughed again. But this time, I was the one smiling. "Well, about that. You've got 24 hours to return the money, every cent, or I'm filing a police report." Her response, a sneer through the phone, "You wouldn't dare." I hung up. No more arguing. I called the bank back, officially reported my card stolen, and flagged every charge as fraudulent. The rep explained the next steps, including filing a police report. I booked an appointment for the next morning. Then I made a call that would turn out to be critical. To my dad. My parents split when I was 19, 6 years ago. Ugly divorce. Dad left after discovering Mom had been siphoning money from their joint accounts for years. He'd moved 2 states away, remarried, and started fresh. He picked up on the second ring. "Nick, everything okay?" "Dad, I need to ask you about Grandpa's will. The trust you told me about." Saturday morning. I walked into the police station armed with a binder printed bank statements, transaction receipts, text screenshots, a detailed timeline. Detective Bella, the officer on duty, listened politely but skeptically at first. "You're filing fraud charges against your own mother?" she asked, flipping through my paperwork. "Yes. She broke into my apartment, stole my card, and drained my savings. I can prove it." That's when I pulled up security footage from my building manager. Clear as day, my mother creeping into my apartment at 1 a.m., slipping out 40 minutes later with a small purse. Detective Bella's entire expression changed. "This is substantial evidence, Mr. Callahan. With this and the financial records, we can definitely move forward. Are you absolutely certain you want to press charges?" "I'm certain." She nodded and started the paperwork. Warned me it would take a few days, that Mom and Audrey would be interviewed, and that I should prepare for backlash. Backlash. I was counting on it. And sure enough, it came fast. By Sunday, my phone lit up with furious texts from Audrey. "How could you do this to me? My wedding is in 8 weeks. And now everyone knows what a selfish jerk you are. I hope you're happy ruining my special day." I screenshotted every single one. Evidence folder updated. That evening, my Uncle Paul, Mom's brother, called. He was the calm one in the family, usually above the drama. Usually. "Nick, your mother's in hysterics. Says you're trying to have her arrested over a misunderstanding." "Uncle Paul, she stole my credit card and spent $15,000. That's not a misunderstanding." He sighed. "Look, I'm not saying it was right, but is this worth tearing the family apart? Can't you just work it out?" Translation: let her rob you in peace. She had her chance. She refused. This isn't about money anymore. It's about consequences. A long pause. Then Paul added, "She says she's going to fight this. That she has resources." Resources. My stomach tightened. That meant lawyers. And that's exactly why I'd called my dad. Monday morning. I opened the folder Dad had overnighted to me. Inside documents from my grandfather's estate. He'd sold his small business for a fortune and set up a trust before passing, dividing the money among his kids and grandkids. But buried in the legal jargon was one brutal clause: any beneficiary convicted of fraud, in theft, embezzlement, or financial crimes against another family member forfeits their entire share, which will be redistributed to the remaining beneficiaries. My mom's share, $180. Ling ling ling. Locked in a trust she couldn't touch until she turned 62 next year. Audrey had $45,000 waiting for her at 28. And the kicker, Grandpa had made me secondary trustee after Dad. If Mom was convicted, I'd be the one enforcing the forfeiture. Every penny of her share would be rerouted straight to me and my cousins. Dad once told me Grandpa included that clause because he'd seen Mom's manipulations firsthand and wanted to protect the family. I thought it was paranoid at the time. Now it was my nuclear option. And just as I was piecing it all together, my phone rang. Detective Bella. Mr. Callahan. We've reviewed your case. Given the evidence, we're moving forward with charges. Detective Bella told me. Your mother will be contacted this week for questioning. What about my sister? She knowingly benefited from the fraud. That's trickier. Bella admitted. If she truly didn't know the money was stolen, they can't charge her. But we'll be asking questions. As soon as we hung up, I sent Audrey a text. Every charge made on my stolen card needs to be refunded immediately. You have 48 hours. Her reply came within minutes. Are you insane? The deposits are non-refundable. The wedding is in 7 weeks. I'm not canceling anything. I shot back. Then you'll be walking down the aisle while Mom's facing fraud charges. Your choice. Her response was almost instant. You're bluffing. You won't actually do this. I didn't bother answering. Wednesday. The hammer dropped. Detective Bella and another officer showed up at Mom's house. My aunt, who lived nearby, texted me a play-by-play. 90 minutes inside. Mom walked out pale and shaken. Audrey screamed at the cops from the driveway like it was some reality show. That afternoon, the phone rang. Mom Slayed. Richard Voss, Family Law and White Collar Defense. Just perfect. Mr. Callahan, he said smoothly. I represent Eleanor Callahan regarding the allegations you've made. I'd like to discuss a resolution. My client acknowledges there was a misunderstanding regarding the use of your credit card. She's prepared to set up a 12-month payment plan to return the $15. Ling ling ling. In exchange, you drop the charges. I almost laughed. A payment plan for stolen money. There's no misunderstanding, I said coldly. There's video evidence. She committed fraud. The answer is no. His tone sharpened. I strongly advise you to reconsider. Pursuing criminal charges against your mother will be expensive, time-consuming, and permanently damage your family. Is that really worth $15? Ling ling ling. Yes, I said flatly. A beat of silence. Then very well. But be warned, we'll mount a vigorous defense. This will get ugly. I'm waiting for it. Click. Within minutes, my phone exploded with messages from relatives: Aunt Laura, Uncle Paul, cousins I barely spoke to, all begging me to drop the charges, to be the bigger person, to think about Audrey's wedding. Not one of them condemned what Mom did. It was all about saving face, protecting Audrey, protecting Mom. Funny how family comes first only applies when they're taking from me. Everyone knew Mom played favorites, knew she manipulated people, knew Audrey was spoiled rotten, but it was easier for them to enable than confront. Not anymore. That night, Kai came over with pizza and beer. He'd been checking in daily since the theft. So, they lawyered up. He said, "Does that mean you're screwed?" "Nah." I smirked, pulling up the evidence folder. I've got security footage, bank records, and her admitting it on a recorded call. She's cornered. The lawyers just damage control. Kai raised an eyebrow. What about the wedding? I showed him Audrey's Instagram. She'd posted a dramatic rant about how her toxic brother was trying to ruin her special day, preaching that family should support each other. Her friends flooded the comments with sympathy. She's playing the victim card hard, I said. Kai shook his head. Man, your family's something else. What's your endgame? I told him about the trust, about Grandpa's forfeiture clause, about the $180. 000. Mom would lose if she was convicted. Kai let out a low whistle. Dang. That's not just revenge, that's tactical. It's justice. I said, she's stolen from me my whole life money. Time. Peace of mind. Now she's about to pay. Audrey. She could have done the right thing. But she doubled down. She's collateral damage. Kai raised his drink. Guttasai. I respect it. Most people would have folded by now. The next few days blurred into legal prep. Detective Bella kept me updated. The investigation was moving fast. They'd already seized Mom's financial records. Turns out, this wasn't her first stunt. They found other suspicious withdrawals times she'd borrowed from family members without permission. Then, Friday afternoon, exactly 1 week after the theft, I got a call from Peter, Audrey's fiancé. I barely knew the guy, but his voice was tense. Almost disparity. Nick. Man. We need to talk. Just us. Coffee. That was Peter on the line, Audrey's fiancé. His voice was tight. Nervous. Interesting. I agreed. Saturday morning. I got to the coffee shop early. Tucked myself into a corner booth. 10 minutes later, Peter walked in looking like he hadn't slept in days. He slid into the seat across from me. Thanks for meeting me, he said. I know things are really messed up right now. That's one way to put it. He exhaled. Rubbed his face. Look, you need to understand I didn't know your mom stole that money. Audrey told me you'd agreed to contribute, that you were happy to help. I leaned back, studying him. He seemed genuine. And you believe that? Even though I've never once talked to you about the wedding. She said you two had a complicated relationship, that you were more comfortable going through your mom. I thought it was weird. But, he trailed off, dragging a hand through his hair. I wanted to believe her. We're supposed to be married in 7 weeks. So, what changed? The cops. They came to her place Thursday, asking questions. I heard everything. After they left, I confronted her, asked if she knew the money was stolen. He swallowed hard. She admitted it. All of it. That got my full attention. Everything. Peter nodded. He looked sick. It wasn't just your mom. She'd been planning it with Audrey for weeks. 2 months ago, Audrey scoped your apartment, figured out where you kept your wallet, your documents. She's the one who suggested hitting the account at night so you wouldn't notice right away. My fists clenched under the table. Audrey hadn't been some passive victim. She was in on it. The wide-eyed, panicked act. Just that, an act. So, Audrey planned this with Mom. I said evenly. Yeah, your mom wanted your money. But Audrey's the one who said you'd never agree if they asked, that they'd have to take it. And I thought my trust issues couldn't get any worse. Why are you telling me this? I asked. Peter met my eyes. Because I'm not marrying someone who helps rob her own brother. I called off the wedding this morning. The words hung in the air. I hadn't expected that. You called it off. Gave her back the ring an hour before I came here. Told her I can't build a life with someone capable of that kind of betrayal. She's been blowing up my phone since calls. Texts. I blocked her. He slid his phone across the table. Screens full of frantic messages. Peter, please. It was Mom's idea. I'll fix it. Then, uglier. You're going to regret this. I'll tell everyone you cheated. That you left me at the altar. End of 14. I respected the hell out of him in that moment. Guy had a spine. What do you need from me? I asked. Nothing. Just wanted you to know the truth and that not everyone's against you. Then he added. There's more. Of course there was. He pulled up more screenshots, texts between Audrey and Mom. Plans to break into my apartment. Notes about which vendors to book with my money. And the worst one, Nick's 2 passive to press charges. He'll fold once the wedding gets close. And that one burned. Can I get copies of these? Already sent them to your email. Thought the cops might want them. We talked another half hour. When we parted ways, he shook my hand. For what it's worth. I'm sorry. Your family's made you feel like the problem. You're not. They are. Driving home, my mind raced. Audrey, my sister, hadn't just benefited from the theft. She orchestrated it. All while playing the devoted bride to be online. Posting about how blessed she was. The manipulation was next level. That afternoon, I forwarded Peter's evidence to Detective Bella. 20 minutes later, she called. Mr. Callahan. These messages change everything. If your sister knowingly participated, We can charge her as an accomplice. Are you prepared for that? I thought about all the times she'd gotten away with it, the lies. The stolen cash when we were kids. The time she wrecked my car and blamed me while Mom covered for her. Always protected. Always excused. Yes. I said. Charge her. By Tuesday, Audrey was arrested. My phone lit up like a Christmas tree, angry relatives furious that I had let it happen. Like I'd personally slapped the cuffs on her. The best part, Mom's lawyer called Wednesday. Zama Richard Voss. But this time his voice was tight. Urgent. Mr. Callahan. Given your sister's arrest, my client is willing to offer full restitution. The $15,000 immediately. All legal costs covered. In exchange, you drop the charges. No. Please listen. Prison time for your mother, is that really what you want? What I want, I said, is for her to finally face the consequences. He tried everything, fresh starts. Family unity. Big picture nonsense. I shot down every angle until he finally sighed. You're making a mistake. This will haunt you. Not as much as she has, I said, and hung up. Friday. The call I'd been waiting for came. Mr. Callahan. Detective Bella said, her tone firm. Your mother has been formally charged with credit card fraud, identity theft, and felony theft. Your sister's been charged as an accomplice. Both are facing serious time. However, the prosecutor's office is open to a plea deal if they show remorse and make full restitution. What kind of plea deal, I asked. Probation. Community service. A permanent criminal record. Detective Bella explained. No jail time. But only if they pay everything back immediately. There's one condition: they must allocute in court. Allocute. They'll have to stand before a judge and publicly admit what they did. On the record. Public humiliation. A criminal record. Legal consequences carved into stone. Exactly what they'd never thought they'd face. When? Hearing set for Monday. They have until tonight to agree. Or this goes to trial. I thanked her and hung up. Then waited. Wondered if Mom would finally choke down her pride or let her ego drag this all the way to trial. 2 hours later, my phone lit up with her number. Straight to voicemail. She tried 3 more times before leaving a message. Her voice trembled. Nick. Please pick up. The lawyer says we should take the plea. But that means admitting everything in court. Everyone will know. There has to be another way. Call me back. I didn't. Saturday morning. Audrey tried from a different number, probably a friend since I'd blocked hers. Another voicemail. Her voice raw from crying. Nick. It's me. Please don't let this go to court. Peter left me. The wedding's canceled. My friends know everything. I've lost it all. I'll pay you back myself. You promise? Just don't make us do this. Her voice cracked, then broke into sobs. For a second, something twisted in me, not sympathy. Maybe pity. But then I remembered her text to Mom: Nick's too passive to follow through. Turns out, I'm very passive. Passively watching everything unravel from the comfort of my couch. Monday morning. I was in court. Detective Bella said I didn't need to be. But I wanted to see it with my own eyes. Closure. Or maybe just pettiness. The courtroom was small. Defendants in cheap suits. Lawyers with briefcases. Scattered family members, whispering in the benches. I sat in the back. Mom and Audrey were up front with their lawyer. Both dressed like they were at a funeral. Audrey's eyes were puffy, trying to play the poor victim role. Cute. Judge Harper, a sharp-eyed woman with steel gray hair, called the case. Mrs. Callahan. Miss Callahan. How do you plead? Their lawyer cleared his throat. Your Honor. Both defendants plead guilty and accept the plea agreement. The judge adjusted her glasses. Mrs. Callahan. Do you understand that? Pleading guilty means you'll have a criminal record. Mom's voice was barely audible. Yes. Your Honor. And you? Miss Callahan. Audrey just nodded. Lips trembling. Then allocute. Tell this court what you did. Silence hung in the air like a noose. Then Mom spoke. Hollow. I entered my son's apartment without permission. I took his credit card. I used it to make charges totaling $15,000 for my daughter's wedding. I did this, knowing he refused to give me the money. I acted intentionally. Without his consent. Judge Harper's gaze shifted. And you? Miss Callahan. Audrey's voice cracked. I helped plan it. I showed my mother where my brother kept his card. I knew it was stolen. I spent the money anyway. The courtroom went dead quiet. Very well. The judge said. This court accepts your pleas. You will each serve 3 years probation. Complete 200 hours of community service. And repay $15. 0 restitution, an initial payment within 30 days. Remainder on a schedule. You will also attend court-ordered counseling. Violate these terms, and you go to jail. They nodded, humiliated. As people filed out, Mom turned and caught my eye. Her face was streaked with tears. A look I'd never seen before defeat. Maybe even regret. I didn't blink. Outside, Audrey tried to approach me, calling out, Nick, please can we talk? Her lawyer yanked her back, but she still shouted after me. I walked straight to my car and drove away. For 3 days after, my phone wouldn't stop ringing. Mom, Audrey, family members, all suddenly desperate to talk. To work things out, I ignored every call. Let them sit with the weight of their choices. Friday morning, a new number appeared. Out of habit, I answered. Is this Nick Callahan? A crisp, professional woman's voice. Yes. Who's this? Jennifer Walters from Cornerstone Bank. I'm calling regarding Eleanor Callahan and Audrey Callahan. They've listed you as a point of contact for a loan application. My stomach turned to ice. What loan application? They're applying for a joint personal loan of $15,000 to make their restitution payment as ordered by the court. However, given their recent convictions, the application has been flagged. We need to verify some information with you. I just sat there, phone to my ear, realizing the irony. Even after being convicted, even after confessing in open court, they were still trying to use someone else's money to clean up their mess. So, they were trying to take out a loan to pay me back, probably at some predatory interest rate they'd later blame on me. I could already hear the narrative Nick forced us into debt. I shut that down with the bank rep immediately. I'm not involved in their financial decisions. Whatever they choose to do is their business. Understood, she said. We just needed to confirm you're the victim in their fraud case. Public records line up. So that's all I need. Thank you for your time. Click. I sat there, thinking. The 30-day deadline for restitution was closing in, and they didn't have the money. Mom couldn't access her trust until next year. Audrey had no income. Perfect. That afternoon, I finally called Dad. Nick, I've been trying to reach you. Saw the court records. Heck of a week. You could say that. Listen, I need to know about Grandpa's trust. Mom's conviction, does it trigger the forfeiture clause? Silence on the line. Then Dad said quietly, yeah, it does. I want to enforce it. All right. I'll send the trustee paperwork. You'll need to file notice with the court and the administrator. Takes 60 days. But once it's processed, her share gets redistributed. You'll get the largest portion as the victim, and Audrey, her shares tied to the same clause. Both of them would forfeit. Combined, that's about $225. Ling ling ling. I let that number sit in my head. 225 grand. 15 times what they stole from me. Do it, I said. File it. That evening, I drove to Mom's house. Didn't go inside, just parked across the street, watching shadows flicker behind the curtains, probably scheming which relative to guilt trip next. My phone buzzed. A text from Mom. I know you're outside. Please come in. We need to talk. Of course, she'd spotted me. She always had hawk eyes. The door opened before I knocked. Mom stood there, looking 10 years older than she had 2 weeks ago. Audrey sat slumped on the couch. Wrecked. We need to discuss the restitution payment, Mom said, motioning toward the dining table. Loan applications, bank statements, budget spreadsheets covered every inch. We don't have $15. 0 cash, she said. The bank offered a loan, but the interest is 23%. 5 years of debt. Not my problem, I said flatly. Audrey's head snapped up. What do you mean, not your problem? You're the one who pressed charges. You put us here. No, you put yourselves here when you stole from me. Her voice rose. How can you be so heartless? Family forgives each other. You're supposed to. I'm supposed to. What? I cut her off. Let you rob me and say thank you. That's not family. Audrey, that's abuse. And forgive me if I missed the Hallmark movie where family plans a heist in your own apartment. Everyone calmed down. Mom said, raising a trembling hand. Nick, please. Maybe we could set up a payment plan with you directly. Smaller amounts over time. You mean like the 12-month plan your lawyer already pitched and I already rejected? She flinched. We're desperate. If we take the loan, we'll drown in debt. Audrey can't get a job with her record. I might lose mine when they run a background check. We'll have nothing. I looked at the wreckage of the two people who had spent years draining me financially, emotionally, mentally. A part of me felt satisfaction. Another part, buried deep, remembered birthdays and bike lessons and Sunday dinners. I spoke carefully. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to take that loan. You're going to pay me back every cent in 30 days like the court ordered. Then you're going to therapy. Real therapy. Figure out why you thought I was your personal ATM for 25 years. If, after years of actual change, you show real remorse, maybe we rebuild something. But it'll never be what it was. That family is dead. Audrey opened her mouth to argue, but I raised my hand. And one more thing. Grandpa's trust clause. It's triggered. Dad already confirmed. Mom's face drained of color. Nick, please. That's our future. Our security. That's gone. Grandpa built in protections for exactly this reason. You proved him right. You forfeit. Audrey's voice cracked into a scream. That's $200. 000. That's my inheritance. You can't just take it. I'm not taking it. You forfeited it. Big difference. Mom collapsed into a chair, face in her hands. We'll have nothing. No savings. No nest egg. Nothing. You'll have what everyone else has. I said. What you earn. Welcome to the real world. The silence was heavy, broken only by Audrey's quiet sobbing. And for the first time in years, I felt, not triumphant, but free. I turned for the door. You've got 27 days left. After that, we'll see. Nick. Wait. Mom's voice cracked behind me. Do you hate us? I looked back at her. Not at the manipulative mother who'd stolen from me, but at a broken woman who torched her own family with greed. No. I said finally. But I'll never let you use me again. And I walked away. No. I said quietly. I don't hate you. But I don't trust you. And I don't know if I ever will again. That's on you to fix, not me. I walked out, got in my car, and didn't look back. 4 weeks later, on the first restitution payment landed in my account on the very last day before they would have violated probation. I deposited it, watched my savings finally return to where it belonged, and felt a weight lift. 2 months after that, the trust forfeiture became official. A check for $140. 000 arrived my share of the redistributed funds. I put it straight into a high-yield savings account and left it untouched. That wasn't spending money. That was my future. My safety net. My reminder that no one would ever steal from me again. Mom started texting occasionally updates from therapy. Apologies that, for the first time, felt less like manipulation and more like someone trying to own their mistakes. I'd reply sometimes. Short. Polite. But always distant. Audrey. She stopped after the 5th unanswered apology. Last I heard, Peter had moved states away, and she was stuck at a call center, trying to rebuild from the rubble. Good. She needed to understand what real work looked like. They tried to drown me with entitlement, manipulation, and guilt. Instead, they sank under the weight of their own choices. And me, I didn't drown. I learned to swim. What story? 2 inches ordered to support my stepbrother's musical career. My parents handed him my college fund. I became a doctor 10 years later. They arrived for assistance with their medical costs. I gave his demo CD to them. Read it. We get ready for this one. It's been 10 years in the making. And the reward was stunning. I am a 32-year-old woman who practices general medicine in Portland. However, my parents, who valued musical theater above medical school, completely ruined my future 10 years ago when I was 18. Here's how it went down. When I was 12, my mother wed Gary. My stepdad, he arrived with Trevor. a 15-year-old son who instantly became our household's golden kid. Trevor was a Broadway wannabe who sang show songs and practiced his jazz hands in front of the mirror whenever he had free time. The kid's pipes were good. I'll grant him that. However, he also had Kanye West's ego and a sloth's work ethic. Gary was one of those divorced fathers who made an excessive effort to be the cool kid. He would often boast about Trevor's creative ability and his potential to become the next great Broadway star. Every discussion inexorably brought up Trevor's most recent performance or audition. Meanwhile, I was getting straight A's in AP chemistry and biology, volunteering at the hospital, and already plotting my route to medical school. It was almost laughable how blatantly clear the bias was. Gary said, "That's nice. Honey, did you hear Trevor got the lead in the school musical when I was accepted into the National Honor Society?" Mom gave me a courteous pat on the back when I scored in the 95th percentile on my pats. But she quickly changed the topic to how Trevor needed a new headshot for his portfolio. Trevor took advantage of the attention and made the most of it. At mealtime talks, this child would start singing. I'm serious. He would start singing Wicked's Defying Gravity as if we were his own audience as we were talking about shopping lists. As I sat there wondering if this was what it was like to have a stroke, Gary would grin with pride. The way they managed our various activities was the real kicker. My work for the scientific fair. Very good. My love. A celebratory luncheon was held following Trevor's community theater performances, which were attended by the whole family and decorated with flowers. I once earned first place in the regional science Olympiad. The only thing Gary said was that Trevor had rehearsal, so he asked if we could go early. I recall a specific incident from my junior year that summed up the dynamics of the family rather well. This study on antibiotic resistance in nearby water sources had taken months of my time. My AP biology instructor nominated me for a state-level scientific competition after I spent weekends at the university lab, conducted fieldwork, collected samples, and presented my results. I learned that I had placed second at state that same week. An enormous achievement that may seem fantastic on college applications. In the community theater's performance of Guys and Dolls, Trevor tried out for the main role. He was called back. A callback. Not the role. What accomplishment dominated the following month's family dinner conversation, in fact? Gary placed the callback notification on the refrigerator after printing it off. I assumed college would be my escape route. But my state-level science award ended up in a drawer. I had been putting every penny aside for my part-time work at the pharmacy. 8-hour weekend shifts and 3 after-school hours every week. The labor was mind-numbing. Managing the register, stocking shelves, and assisting customers who were baffled by the fact that their insurance did not cover their pets' prescription drugs. However, I deposited every paycheck directly into my college savings account. More significantly, my mother had always assured me that the remainder would be paid by my college fund. This was no ambiguous parental pledge. My biological father created this account in real life before he passed away in a vehicle accident when I was 8 years old. As a forward-thinking and pragmatic engineer, Dad had established an education fund that increased gradually over time via prudent investments. The amount had increased to around $85,000 by my senior year. Not enough for Harvard Medical School. Maybe. But sufficient to get me through undergraduate without debt and provide me a good platform for medical school applications. My whole schedule was laid out. Maintain a good GPA. Do well on the MCATs. Get admitted to Oregon Health and Science University. Finish residency. And eventually become Dr. Sarah Mitchell, after 4 years of pre-med at Oregon State. That's where I made a mistake. I thought that because I had a deceased father's money put aside for my schooling, it must be mine. Right in the heart of college choice season. In the spring of my senior year, the bomb went off. I was preparing to accept my seat at Oregon State by comparing pre-med programs and investigating medical schools. Despite being admitted to other universities, Oregon State provided the greatest in-state tuition and academic reputation. When my mother knocked on my door in that phony lovely voice, she used to break bad news. I was in my room preparing for my AP mathematics exams. It was the same tone she had used when she told me that money was tight and that I couldn't obtain a vehicle for my 16th birthday, or that we couldn't afford the senior class trip to Washington, D.C. We must discuss college. Honey. I assumed she wanted to talk about room assignments or lunch preparations. Perhaps inquire about my class schedule or the introduction to the campus. I was mistaken. Boy, your stepfather and I have been conversing, and we've decided to shift your college budget toward Trevor's professional advancement. I gazed at her, as if she had begun to speak Greek. Literally. The words didn't add up. What do you mean by redirect? Trevor was admitted to Juilliard's rigorous summer program. And then there's the acting conservatory in New York, which lasts all year. Sarah. This is his chance. This is his one chance to succeed in the field. I was physically punched in the gut by the words. I truly felt nauseated. My college fund is that. That money was left by Dad for my schooling. Mom's expression tightened and became protective. The look on her face every time she realized she was being unreasonable but yet decided to stand by her stance. We make choices as a family. And Gary is now your father. Trevor's dreams are as legitimate as yours. Dreams of Trevor. I intend to become a doctor. Life will be saved by me. He wants to perform show songs while dancing in tights. Be less theatrical. You will have more options for attending college. The window of Trevor is closing. He must strike while it's still hot. When the iron is hot, strike. The 20-year-old's greatest achievement was being chosen to be the third chorus member in the high school production of Oklahoma. He had never had a real job and had never paid for anything himself. You can take out student loans like everyone else, Gary said, perhaps listening in from the doorway. The experience of developing character. I tried every argument I could think of. But the money came from my father, not Gary. And Trevor's artistic development can't wait. Character building. Right. So working 3 jobs to pay for medical school while Trevor lived it up in Manhattan pursuing his art was exactly what my father had in mind when he started that college fund. Trevor was chasing a pipe dream in an industry where 90% of actors are unemployed at any given time. And I had real career prospects with clear earning potential. Medical school was costly and competitive, and I needed that financial foundation to have any realistic chance at success. However, nothing worked. According to Gary, who ran a Jiffy Lube franchise and believed that having your oil changed every 3,000 meters was the pinnacle of car sophistication. Trevor was the family's best investment and their ticket to fame and fortune. He kept saying that if he had a successful Broadway show, he would be set for life. The conversation continued in circles for 2 hours. Mom insisted that this was what families do for each other and that I was selfish for not seeing Trevor's needs. But Gary kept talking about return on investment and supporting artistic talent. And I kept pointing out that this was blatant theft, taking funds meant for one person's education and giving them to someone else. Gary finally dropped the real bombshell. The decision has already been made. We've spoken to the financial advisor and started the transfer process. We needed to act quickly because Trevor's program starts in June. They hadn't even bothered to tell me about it, let alone consult me, and had already begun moving my money to fund Trevor's fantasy before they'd even bothered to consult me. The worst part was seeing Trevor's reaction when they told him. Don't worry, Sarah, he said with a condescending smile that made me want to hurl something at his head. The kid didn't even have the decency to feel guilty. He just started looking up apartments in New York and talking about how he'd thank the family in his Tony Award acceptance speech. I kept myself in my room for the rest of the day, alternating between anger and misery, using the money left over from my deceased father. When I make it big, I'll help pay for your medical school. Think of this as an investment in both our futures, an investment in his Broadway dreams. That education fund was the foundation for all I had planned, worked for, and sacrificed. Without it, medical school becomes significantly more difficult, maybe impossible. That summer was cruel in unexpected ways. I was working extra shifts at the pharmacy and applying for every loan, grant, and scholarship I could find, while Trevor was having a great time at his Juilliard program, sharing Instagram stories from cool Manhattan cafes and networking events. My second home was the Oregon State Financial Assistance Office. My guidance counselor, Mrs. Patterson, assisted me in navigating the complex web of requirements and applications. Despite her best efforts to be professional, she was subtly incensed at my predicament. She informed me, there are options. During one of our sessions, spread over her desk were scholarship applications, loan papers, and work-study program information. Merit scholarships, need-based help, work-study programs, student loans. Although it won't be simple, it is possible. She didn't say anything, but we both knew it would be far more difficult than necessary. With parental assistance, students may concentrate on their studies and extracurricular activities. I would have to put in 30 hours a week as a student simply to make ends meet. I ended up cobbling together a financial assistance package that paid roughly 60% of my fees. Tuition was largely subsidized by academic scholarships. Although lodging and board was partially covered by need-based assistance, a sizable deficit remained. The remainder was earned while working evenings at a 24-hour eatery close to the university. I started serving coffee and pie to inebriated college students and shift workers at the Sunrise Cafe at 1000 p.m. until 6 in the morning, 3 times a week. My first-year timetable seems to have been created by a sadist. Day classes, afternoon study sessions, and work starting at 1000 p.m. till 6 a.m. Rest for 4 hours, and then repeat. I survived on coffee from the vending machine and whatever free food I could find in the restaurant, such as day-old muffins, soup that was going bad, and the odd sandwich made by a kind chef. Trevor, meantime, was networking with other budding performers, sharing his creative journey, and sharing Instagram tales from hip cafes in Manhattan, his coffee shop meetings, acting courses, and what seemed to be a rather busy social life were all paid for with the $85,000 that should have spent guaranteeing my college. My grades fell that first year. Not too awful. Although it wasn't the 3.8 I had hoped for, I managed to keep a 3.4 gigapascals. When you're only getting 4 hours of sleep and your largest meal of the day is often a granola bar in between courses, it's difficult to do well academically. However, I adjusted. I discovered study groups that convened when I was awake, cultivated connections with instructors during office hours, when the majority of other students were mingling, found that candidates who had earned their way through college were really given preference by medical school admissions committees. It showed commitment and a work ethic that was unmatched by trust fund children. Trevor's dispatches from New York were more irregular and ambiguous. The year-long conservatory proved to be more difficult than he had anticipated, but the Juilliard summer program went well. From creative insights, his Instagram postings evolved into grievances about the competitiveness of New York theater, the high expense of living, and the challenge of standing out amid so many gifted actors. On our few family phone conversations, Gary would always make excuses. His creative voice is emerging. It's difficult to get into the New York scene. All he needs is more time to make a name for himself in the field. In reality, Trevor needed to work, but he seemed to think it was beneath him. He would gripe about pricey lessons that weren't producing the desired results, auditions where he didn't get callbacks, and the general challenges of succeeding as an artist in New York during the few occasions I had direct conversations with him. By my sophomore year, I discovered my groove. Higher grades were the result of improved time management. I improved my GPA to 3.C. I had been promoted to shift supervisor, which meant somewhat higher pay and more consistent hours. But the restaurant job was still quite taxing. In addition, I had begun teaching organic chemistry to other students, which paid more than working in restaurants and improved my resume for medical school. In the meanwhile, Trevor had relocated to a shared flat in Brooklyn from the pricey Manhattan penthouse. The updates from New York were less regular, and when he did post on social media, it was generally about the difficulties of being an artist rather than genuine triumphs. The junior year had both chances and difficulties. I had begun working as a volunteer at the University Health Center, gaining practical patient care experience that would be very beneficial for applying to medical schools. Dr. Martinez, the volunteer coordinator, took on the role of an unofficial mentor, assisting me with the application process for medical school and even composing one of my reference letters. However, Trevor's announcement of returning home was also announced during his junior year. After 3 years and the majority of my college funds, the New York experiment had officially failed. He was 23 years old, broke, and returning to his boyhood bedroom as if nothing had changed. Gary saw it as refocusing for his next stage and returning to the local market with invaluable industry expertise. What it truly meant was that Trevor had spent $85,000 of my inheritance and had nothing to show for it but lies about auditions he didn't schedule and relationships that didn't go anywhere. The dynamics of the family during Christmas get-togethers were awkward. Trevor would regale everyone with tales of his career, including directors and actresses he had met in passing at networking gatherings. While everyone else was absorbed in Trevor's stories from the Big Apple, I was putting in zesty nowadays between volunteering, job, and school in order to be ready for the MCATs. It was crunch time in senior year, applying to medical schools, preparing for the MCAT, keeping up grades, and earning enough hours to cover necessities. 2 times, I took the MCAT. The first score was decent but not outstanding. The second try was considerably better after months of studying using borrowed prep materials and free web tools. Interviews for medical school were a kind of torture in and of themselves. I couldn't afford professional attire. My shopping budget was impacted by travel expenditures. The pressure to outperform candidates whose parents could afford application counselors and test preparation classes. However, it managed to work somehow. I was admitted to Oregon Health and Science University. My ideal educational institution, outstanding reputation and reasonably priced for kids who are in state. Although it wasn't a full scholarship, it was doable with loans and the part-time job I intended to keep up while in medical school. I earned a 3.9 gigapascals in biochemistry when I graduated from Oregon State summa cum laude 4 years later. It wasn't terrible for someone who had been working 25 to 30 hours a week throughout college and subsisting on restaurant pastries and meals from vending machines. Without family support, medical school was considerably more difficult. I was working weekends as a medical scribe at urgent care centers, coaching undergraduates in organic chemistry, and doing medical research for professors who paid graduate student rates for data, while other students could concentrate only on their studies. Examination. The loans were frightful. New promissory notes, debt totals, and estimates of how long it would take to repay everything were introduced every semester. I owed around $250,000 by the time I graduated, which was doable for a doctor's income but still a significant amount of debt that would follow me for many years. I followed Trevor on social media and via family rumors throughout my time in medical school. He still lived at home with Mom and Gary, had landed a job at a local music shop, and sometimes performed in community theater shows. He continued to speak about his music career as if he were in between big possibilities. It was a sharp contrast. During my 80-week clinical rotations, I was learning how to diagnose heart attacks and deliver babies, getting ready to save lives and make a significant contribution to society. Trevor was auditioning for Greek dinner, theater productions, and selling guitar picks. I began my family medicine residency at Portland General after graduating medical school with honors. 3 years of grueling schedules, rotating through emergency rooms, working overnight shifts, and learning how to manage everything from routine checkups to life-threatening situations. However, I adored it. Every challenging case, every hard diagnostic, every patient I treated, it all seemed worth it. The family updates grew increasingly worrisome during residency. Trevor was working part-time at Guitar Center after losing his job at the music store. He is still living at home and pursuing his goals. But he is getting close to 30 and has neither life skills nor any real job prospects. Gary had been getting sicker. He continued to ignore his poor diet, excessive stress, and what appeared to be undiagnosed heart issues. With Trevor making almost no contribution to household expenses, Mom's part-time job at a dentist office was not providing enough income to sustain 3 adults. After completing my residency, I started my own family medicine practice in a pleasant suburb of Portland. I gradually grew my patientele and, for the first time in my adult life, started earning a living. The practice fulfilled all of my dreams, treating elderly patients, children, and families, being the kind of physician that spent time with each patient and really listened to them. My college debts were now affordable with a doctor's wage. I had purchased a dependable automobile, leased a modest home with a garden, and begun to consider creating a life rather than only getting by until the next test or loan payment. At age 31, Trevor continued to live in the bedroom he had shared as a youngster, worked part-time in retail, and periodically spoke on Facebook about unfulfilled ideas. Then the phone rang. On a calm Tuesday afternoon, I was in my office going over patient records when my mother phoned and started sobbing uncontrollably because he didn't have time to be ill. Gary disregarded the chest aches that had been bothering him for weeks. The traditional masculine reaction to alarming signs. Eventually, while working the morning shift at Jiffy Lube, then he passed out and was taken to the hospital. The ED doctor who had contacted Mom with updates said it was a heart attack. A serious one. He requires surgery. According to the physicians, on the phone, Mom wept. After many bypasses, they intend to keep him in critical care for a minimum of 1 week. My medical education started right away. I inquired about his symptoms, time frame, and the opinions of cardiologists on the prognosis and available treatments, began mentally estimating how long it would take him to heal, what problems may arise, and what type of aftercare he would need. What will the cost of this be? Even though I knew the response would be awful, I still asked. That's when the actual issue surfaced. Gary's Jiffy Lube franchise health insurance was essentially catastrophic coverage only. The kind of plan that is good for normal treatment but leaves you broke when anything big occurs is one with a large deductible and a small network. If everything went according to plan and there were no difficulties or prolonged recuperation time, they were likely facing medical expenditures of $200. Ling ling ling. Maybe 40% of it would be covered by Gary's plan after the deductible was paid. Mom was experiencing the typical terror that occurs when someone who has never experienced significant financial hardship suddenly finds herself in danger of losing everything. They had no money saved up. Trevor's lifestyle and different professional development costs were mostly covered by Gary's salary. Gary had taken out a reverse mortgage on the property a few years before to support some unsuccessful company growth. They were essentially in a bad situation. Mom's voice broke as she added, "We don't know what to do. We reasoned that because you're now a doctor." Maybe. It was there. I had been anticipating this request for years. "You want me to assist with the medical bills," she hurriedly said. "It's not that we expect you to pay everything." Perhaps, sensing how that sounded. However, perhaps you may speak with the physicians. Come to an agreement. And assist us in determining choices for charity, care, or payment arrangements. As they used my inheritance to finance Trevor's Manhattan adventure, I helped them sort out payment arrangements using the money I'd earned from working my ass off through medical school. I gave her the most evasive answer I could muster. "I'll give it some thought." That night, I sat in my living room, the first room in my house that I could really afford to furnish, and gave it some serious thought. I wanted to help. Part of me. In spite of everything, Gary was simply a parent who had made terrible choices about his son's support. He wasn't a horrible guy. Instead of being malevolent, Mom had been weak, allowing Gary to persuade her that funding Trevor's aspirations was more important than protecting my future. But every time I felt bad about their predicament, I thought back to that 2 a.m. sitting at that 24-hour cafe. Because I couldn't afford to study full-time like my colleagues whose parents were supporting them, I served coffee to inebriated college students while studying anatomy throughout medical school. I recalled that after paying for textbooks and lab fees, the only thing I could afford for supper 3 evenings a week was ramen noodles. As Trevor shared Instagram posts from pricey Manhattan eateries, I recalled the ongoing pressure of loan applications, scholarship essays, and the fatigue of working and studying at the same time. For the first time in 3 years, I drove to my childhood home the next morning. Other than Trevor's automobile in the driveway, the home seemed to be identical from the outside. It was a good Honda Accord, possibly more expensive than the stuff I'd eaten in medical school. It was time to mow the grass. It was still the middle-class suburban house where I had grown up, despite some flaking paint. I waited after knocking on the door, even though it was 1:00 a.m. Trevor seemed to have just woken up when he responded. His entitled face was still there, but it wavered somewhat as he saw me standing there. "Sarah." "Hello. Mom and Gary are at the hospital." "I am aware. I came to visit you." He opened the door for me, and I surveyed the living room where I had grown up. The walls have the same family portraits, the same furnishings, and several framed images of Trevor from theater plays throughout the years. I saw that there was no representation of my academic accomplishments. "You know, this is really scary," Trevor replied, reclining down on the sofa as if he were getting ready for a lengthy discussion. "Gary is terribly ill, and the financial situation is completely out of control." "Yes, I did hear. How are you assisting?" He seemed to be really perplexed by the inquiry. "What are you saying? What are you doing to assist with the medical expenditures?" "Exactly. Your age is 31. Rentre. You reside here. For more than 10 years. They have helped you with your professional endeavors. How are you going to support them during this crisis?" Trevor stirred uneasily. He is most likely not used to being asked to accept responsibility for anything. "I work at Guitar Center. After all, I don't exactly have cash on hand for medical bills." "Do I, however? You may be able to find a second employment or perhaps a better main career that makes use of the costly training they paid for you to get." "It isn't that easy. I'm still working as a musician. With my college fund, I can't simply give up on all he and I have worked for." It was breathtakingly audacious. "What happened to the $85? Ling ling ling. Trevor, what are you saying? The $85? 000. My father gave me to cover my schooling was my college money. What happened to it? He was kind enough to seem uneasy. Sarah. At least it was like years ago. I believe money was used for my training, living costs in New York, networking opportunities, and future investment. What was the return on their investment?" There was a long pause between us. suddenly fascinated by the upholstery design. Trevor plucked at a thread on the sofa cushion. "Look," he added at the end. "I know you're probably still upset about the college situation, but it worked out okay. You're a doctor now. You made it work." I made it work by working 3 jobs and accruing $250. 0 inches student debt throughout medical school. I didn't force Mom and Gary to do anything. But you certainly didn't object to it either. And you didn't exactly rush to pay it back when your Broadway dreams didn't work out. You made it work by using my dead father's money to pay for acting classes in Manhattan rent. That's not fair. What do you want me to say? Sarah, I'm sorry. Okay. I'm sorry it went that way. But I can't change the past. And Gary's sick now. This is bigger than old family drama. You're right. This is about accountability. Trevor got up and paced toward the window in that restless way people do when they're faced with uncomfortable truths. Trevor's eyes widened when I reached into my purse and took out a CD, not a burned CD, with a handwritten label that was professionally manufactured with glossy artwork and everything. Where did you get that? Your 2018 MySpace page, where you spent roughly $3,000 of my college funds to have these demo CDs professionally made. You posted about it all the time, saying that this was going to be your big break. Trevor's face flushed. Those were a different stage of my career. I'm more interested in live performances now. Right? Well, I bought a copy off eBay, figuring it was the least I could do since I technically helped pay for it. I placed the CD on the coffee table between us and made my way to the door. Trevor following me. Sarah. Hold on. I turned around at the door and saw this 31-year-old guy who still lived in his boyhood bedroom, who had squandered my inheritance on a failing goal, and who was now pleading with me to save the family that had given up my future for his. What are you doing? Will you assist Gary with his bills? That night, Mom called again. Gary's surgery had gone well, but he would be in the hospital for at least another week. I'm going to help exactly as much as this family helped me get through medical school. What does that mean? It means you should probably start looking through couch cushions for spare change. Maybe sell some of those professional headshots from your portfolio. Did you talk to Trevor? She said. I did. Interesting conversation. He's still living the dream. Apparently, the bills were already piling up, and they had received the estimate for the full treatment cost, 180美元, 000, not including follow-up care and rehabilitation. Sarah, please. They don't just let heart surgery patients die because of billing disputes. But the debt will destroy us. We'll lose the house. And we're at a loss for what to do. I know you're upset about the college fund situation, but this is life or death. Gary could die if he doesn't receive proper follow-up care. Mom, Gary will receive proper follow-up care. You're going to talk to the hospital's financial counselor about payment plans. All hospitals have them, and you're going to apply for charity care programs. The majority of hospitals offer sliding scale assistance for those who cannot afford treatment. I took a deep breath, trying to find the right balance between honesty and cruelty. In order for you to concentrate on paying medical costs, Trevor will take a second job, or even his first real employment, to help with family expenditures. However, Trevor's career mom is a 31-year-old who works part-time in retail and sometimes performs in community theater. You could just help us. You're a doctor. You make good money now. There it was. The entitlement that had characterized my entire childhood. The belief that Trevor's failures were merely short-term setbacks requiring more investment, while my success was somehow communal property. It's time to be realistic about his prospects and his responsibilities to this family. You're right. I do earn a good living because I worked hard to get through medical school without the help of my family. And I earned a good living by working nights and eating ramen noodles for 4 years while my classmates attended study groups, sponsored by parents who could afford to pay for their education. You did what was convenient for your new husband and his son. You sacrificed my future to fund Trevor's fantasy. And now you want me to save you from the consequences of that decision. It wasn't a fantasy. Trevor is talented. I make good money because I graduated with a $4 million debt that I'm still paying off. Mom, Trevor is a 31-year-old guy who works part-time at Guitar Center and lives in his childhood bedroom. His greatest achievement in the last 10 years is a demo CD that no record company ever bothered to listen to. In the meanwhile, I'm really saving lives, helping people, and making important contributions to society. So, you won't help. I'm not giving you money if that's what you're asking. But I'll give you something better. I'll give you the same thing you gave me when I needed support for my education. Advice to figure it out on your own. And good luck making it work. She remained silent for a long time. That's cruel. No. Mom. I hung up, locked their phones, and the next few months were unexpectedly quiet. Cruel as taking a teenager's college fund, money, especially provided by her late father for her education, and giving it to your stepson for acting courses. What I'm doing is justice. After 2 weeks, my cousin Jessica called, and I concentrated on my practice, which was expanding steadily as word got out about the new family doctor who actually listened to patients and took the time to schedule appointments. I had begun specializing in chronic disease management and preventive care, finding genuine fulfillment in assisting people in maintaining their health rather than just treating emergencies, because what I'm hearing from your mom doesn't sound like the Sarah I know, she remarked tactfully, adding that she had been hearing about Gary's predicament and my unwillingness to assist via family rumors and wanted to hear my side of the story. I gave an explanation of everything, including the theft of the college funds, Trevor's unsuccessful career supported by my inheritance, the years of partiality and contempt, and their present-day demand that I save them from the repercussions of their own choices. After I was done, Jessica remained silent for a while. Jesus. Sarah. I was completely unaware of the college fund issue. It is very screwed up. Yeah. All right. That's behind us now. But is it? How do you feel about the way this is all unfolding? Really, I gave the subject serious thought. What do you know? In fact, I'm content with it. Building my profession and demonstrating that I could achieve without their help has been very fulfilling. Even though I spent years feeling bitter about what they did to me, they are now in need of assistance and are learning what it's like when family members fail to provide for the necessities. But what about Gary? He could, after all, and have difficulties and need continuous care. Jessica. Gary will not die. They will discuss payment arrangements with the hospital, consider applying for charitable care programs, and come up with a solution. Just as millions of Americans do each year, hospitals have whole departments devoted to assisting patients in resolving these circumstances. However, they will have to accomplish it on their own. Then maybe they'll understand what it's like to pay for something significant, like I did for 8 years. Jessica got it, although she had never been aware of the full scope of it. She had seen the differences in treatment between Trevor and myself at holiday get-togethers throughout the years. Through the family network, I learned that Gary had been released from the hospital and was recuperating well at home a month later. About 60% of the expenses were reimbursed by the hospital's charity care program, for which they were eligible. A 10-year payment plan with lower interest rates was established for the outstanding liabilities. More significantly, Trevor continued to live at home and had secured a second job working evenings at a contact center, which allowed him to make his first adult contribution to family expenditures. Evidently, the financial crisis had served as a reminder of his music career's actual possibilities. For the first time in years, Mom had returned to her full-time job as a dentist receptionist. It was tight, but they were getting by, without any additional funds for Trevor's creative endeavors or costs associated with his professional growth. Trevor actually texted me 6 months after Gary's operation, using his own phone instead of Mom or other family members. Hello, Sarah. I wanted to get in touch even though I know that things have been strange between us. Gary's recuperation is going well, and I've been reflecting a lot on your remarks on responsibility and accountability. In addition to retail sales, I was promoted to assistant manager of a music shop downtown. Weekend music making is still going on, but it's now more of a passion than a source of income. In any case, I wanted to apologize for the enjoyable college experience. I didn't give any thought to how it impacted your life since I was naive and self-centered. I wanted to let you know that I now understand what you went through. Even though I know this won't make things better, I had never received a sincere apology from him before. In contrast to the typical apologies I was used to from my family, this apology was honest, detailed, and neither flawless nor comprehensive. That's all I sent back. Thanks for saying that. Trevor, it means a lot that you're taking more responsibility and that Gary is doing better. There was a kind of serenity that seemed more precious than coerced forgiveness. But there was no spectacular reconciliation or return to family meals. 6 more months went by. My practice kept expanding. In addition to finally paying off my undergraduate student debts, I had also employed a nurse practitioner to assist manage the patient load. The debt from medical school was still there, but it was manageable and gradually going down. One late evening, I was at work finishing up insurance paperwork and patient files when I received a call from an unidentified local number. Gary here. Dr. Mitchell. Compared to my early recollections, my stepfather's voice was softer and more hesitant. Hello. Gary. How do you feel? Much better. According to the cardiologist, I'm recovering more quickly than expected. Hey, I wanted to ask if we might go out for coffee someday. I don't believe I can adequately convey some of the things I'd want to express over the phone. The next Saturday, we got together in a neutral spot, a coffee shop close to my workplace, which I sometimes went to in between appointments. Gary was older and more worn out than I had recalled. Yet he was healthier than I had anticipated after the big operation. He began without saying, "I owe you an apology." Actually, I apologize in several ways. Curious to see where this was headed, I waited. The issue with the college fund was flawed. Not just ill-considered or misinformed. It was incorrect. I tried to persuade your mother that it was the best course of action for the family. But it wasn't. We had no authority to divert that money, which was intended for your education and had been expressly put aside by your father for that reason. You did it. But why? Gary paused to stir his coffee, obviously considering an honest response. Honestly, I was determined to show that it was the proper decision to support Trevor's aspirations. I wanted to show Trevor that I fully believed in him after my divorce and feeling that I had failed at being a parent the first time. But I did it at your cost. And that was unacceptable. How about Trevor? Have you discussed all of this with him? Over the last several months, we've had a number of lengthy chats. He learned from the financial crisis to take charge of his life rather than relying on others to provide the money for his aspirations. He has been helping out around the home, gotten a better job, and begun to behave like the grown-up he ought to have been years ago. I'm happy that he's maturing. Sarah, I want you to know that your mother's remorse about the college fund choice hasn't gone away. She now speaks about it all the time. How happy she is that, in spite of our lack of assistance, you completed medical school and established a prosperous practice. How much she wishes she hadn't listened to me when I suggested giving Trevor the money instead. So why didn't she tell me that outright? I believe pride and maybe a concern that you would say no to the apology or that it was too little. Too late. Gary took out a folded piece of paper from inside his jacket. A promissory note is what this is. Although we are unable to pay you the whole $85,000 at once, we have devised a plan to pay you back over a 10-year period with interest. We can practically handle it given our existing financial circumstances, even if it's not enough compensation or timely. I opened the paper and had a look. With monthly payment estimates, interest computations, and backup plans in case their financial circumstances altered. It was thorough and well considered. In actuality, the interest rate was more than what they had to provide. Gary, you don't have to do this. Indeed, we do. We funded a dream by stealing your inheritance. We will now repay it, even if it means waiting until we are both dead. After folding the paper, I placed it in my handbag. I want you to know that I'm no longer furious. Gary, for a long time, I was upset over what seemed like a betrayal. But establishing my career on my own terms and demonstrating that I could be successful without family support helped me feel better. In some respects, I'm thankful for the fight since it strengthened and increased my independence. That doesn't mean our actions were correct. No, but it helped shape who I am now, and I enjoy the person I've grown into. After we completed our coffee, we discussed safer subjects. The weather, Gary's recuperation, my practice, and a typical chat between two grown-ups who had managed to live in harmony with one another. This new hype function was recently released by YouTube. Press the hype button if this article has captured your attention. YouTube is informed. This video deserves to blow up.